Studies have shown that people are selective when it comes to recording what happens to and around them. No matter how strongly you feel you have the true picture, you are probably wrong. You can't know the reason for anyone's behavior. To complicate matters further, sometimes we're actively dishonest about the reasons for our behavior. A classic example comes from a Japanese professor in one of my workshops. He claimed he wanted to spend more time with his family, but he was too busy at work. When I asked a few questions and elicited some details about his daily activities, it was clear that he wasted a lot of time at work. Clearly, he had made a choice, and being too busy at work was, of course, bullshit as a reason. This was immediately obvious to everyone in the workshop, yet it took me a full half hour to get a glimmer of recognition out of him. Things happen. We do things, and others do things. If you like what happens, keep doing what you are doing and hope it keeps working well. If you do not like what happens, do it differently next time. Reasons get in the way of this simple, pragmatic approach. We are far better off without reasons. They provide people with excuses to keep behaving dysfunctionally. The world would be a much better place without reasons, right? Okay, yes, not having reasons would lead to a strange existence. Without reasons, you would look like an unreasonable person to everyone else. So where does this leave us? I have a twofold approach to the problem. One for the external persona and one for the internal self. Externally, you use reasons in everyday conversation when you need to, and thus appear to be perfectly normal and reasonable. The internal self also looks at the reasons given by the people you're interacting with. Simply by noticing how reasons are used, you can gain insight into your own behavior and your relationships with others. This approach works well to change your own actions. It can't be used to change others. However, it is not your job to tell anyone else her reasons are unless she is actively seeking your advice, like taking your class or, say, reading your book. Doing this would make you a pretty unlikable person pretty quickly. The best way to fix the world is to fix yourself. As I always caution my students and workshop participants, do not try this on anyone else, at home. Make a pact with yourself to not use reasons unless you have to. This is actually an incredibly empowering position to come from. Be confident enough in your actions not to need to explain yourself. Trust yourself and act. Somewhere along the way, all of us will screw up. Some of us will screw up more than others. It's just plain going to happen. You'll fudge something on a resume and get caught. You'll say something insulting about your boss and find out he's within earshot. You'll accept credit for something that was someone else's idea. You'll sneak into work late and pretend you were there all along. Here's the thing. Presidents Richard Nixon and Bill Clinton both screwed up, yet what got them into real trouble wasn't the original sin. It was the lies they told afterward. Had each of them fessed up, their troubles would most likely have blown over much faster. Instead, we remember, I am not a crook and I did not have sexual relations with that woman as punchlines. Lies can snowball. You tell one, and then you have to tell another to back it up. When you feel painted into a corner, there's a good solution. Tell the truth. It's uncomfortable, and you may get into trouble, yet it will almost certainly be less trouble than if you compound the issue by lying again. When you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, don't cover up. Fess up. Sometimes we can get so caught up in the minutiae of our lives that we forget to step back and see the bigger possibilities out there for us. If you've been following a conservative path, why not take a chance and veer off it for a while? Change your surroundings. Agree to a friend's crazy plan and tag along on a cross-country trip. Learn about communities different from your own and figure out where you fit in. Remember that the real big picture is this. You don't take anything with you when you die, so you might as well spend your time on Earth experiencing all that you can rather than stagnating and accumulating. One of the biggest excuses we have for not getting things done is a lack of time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, and yet what Mother Teresa, Albert Einstein, Bill Gates, and Martin Luther King Jr. accomplished in their days is a lot more than what many others have. It comes back to intention and attention. It's not that they had extra time, it's that they made time. When something is a priority in your life, you have to be willing to walk away from anything that's standing in its way. If there's something useless that's stealing your time, why are you letting it? Understanding that extra hours are not going to appear on your clock. How can you make the time to accomplish what you need to? It may be helpful to write in a journal for a few days, noting truthfully what you're doing all day long and how long you spend on each task. Are you spending more time than you realize getting showered and ready in the morning, texting, mailing, surfing the web, gaming? Even positive things like reading or cooking can take up too much time when you're trying to get something done. When you need to finish a report or you still haven't turned in a long application, instead of procrastinating and sitting around thinking about it, invoke your bias toward action by putting your normal activities aside. Get the job done. Instead of cooking, open a can. Instead of reading the newspapers, save them for later or simply toss them. In the modern world, we have an endless supply of time sinkholes. Don't fall into them. Steal back your time to support your intentions. The word problem has negative connotations. It implies there's something wrong that needs fixing. However, if a problem is reframed as an opportunity to make things in our life better, then it becomes positive, and problem solving can be recognized as one of our basic life forces. Some enlightened individuals think of all problems as opportunities. Still, you do not have to wait for enlightenment to realize the positive influence problems can have in your life. You can just look at your own experience. When I'm working on a problem, it can take over my life. I find it hard to go to sleep, and I wake up early, excited to deal with it. In his classic 19th century Russian novel, Ivan Goncharov creates the anti-hero Ilya Ilyich Oblomov, the ultimate embodiment of a superfluous person. Oblomov is incapable of making a decision or undertaking any significant action. He has no real problems, so he rarely leaves his bed. In fact, he fails to leave his bed for the first 150 pages of the novel. This is a fictitious story that, in its time, was meant to parody the life of idle aristocrats. It represents for me a portrait of what happens in a life without problems. It reaffirms my experience that problems, like satisfying work, are gifts that provide vehicles for the natural development of our life, giving forces. So what are problems? I use the word problem to describe any situation that we want to change. Usually, ally problems are stated as questions. How do I get a job? Or statements, I cannot afford college. Generally, we want to deal with problems in order to effect a positive change in some situation. Life consists of solving a series of problems. We are nearly all very good at it. We learn by repetition and to a great extent are not consciously aware of our abilities. Most people dress themselves suitably on a daily basis, make their way to their destinations, and accomplish basic tasks, such as feeding themselves. Furthermore, they manage all this within their environmental, cultural, and economic constraints. In addition to this daily onslaught of success, we also find frustrations and failures. We all have unsolved issues in our lives. There are situations and people that bug us, and there are vexing personal and professional problems. It is often easy to resolve these issues by applying the simple techniques. I've employed these techniques in my own life and shared them with many groups throughout the world. If you reframe your problem, many possible options become apparent, and the path to a solution often becomes obvious. Once you have a clear view of what you want to accomplish, there are various ways to work out the details. You may not have a choice in how a group is led. Whenever there is a hierarchy of positions and pay scales, it's likely that you'll also encounter some people who will step on each other as they attempt to climb the ladder. You'll know them as the office gossips, the backstabbers, the users, the phonies. I encourage you to steer clear of this entire culture. I can't tell you that people like that don't wind up in high positions. They do, and too often. It is important to ask yourself what kind of satisfaction you'll derive from being that kind of person, even if it does mean you get the title you want. Don't lose sight of your humanity in the pursuit of a fancier car. Many businesses and academic organizations use competition as a means of encouraging people to do their best. They literally have contests, sales contests, design contests, etc., pitting people against each other. Although our culture is habituated to winner take all athletics and other zero-sum games, I'm not a fan of this. While it can have a strong upside for the winner, it has a strong downside for everyone else. It can lower morale, foster jealousy, and hurt relationships. It's important to learn to be motivated to do your personal best regardless of what happens around you. I have found that contests bring out the worst in students, whereas learning to cooperate and share brings out the best. If students are exposed to a learning environment where there is a strong, mutually supportive teaching team as role models, and if they are given enough autonomy, they generate their own sense of excitement and commitment without the defeat and discouragement that is an inherent part of the contest mode. It is generally believed that contests are good motivators. I agree that they are. However, they are not the only motivators. We regularly get extremely high student motivation for and draw large crowds of spectators to project presentations that are the result of cooperation rather than competition. The positive motivational effects are just as good without the destructive downside of contests. Look for ways to be inclusive rather than competitive, for ways to help the whole team win rather than just one individual. As much as possible, it behooves you to erase the idea of competition in the workplace from your mind. Competition leads to backstabbing, gossip, and generally negative feelings, even if you succeed at what you set out to accomplish. Maybe you'll get the raise. However, you'll also lose friendships and may ever after feel that you have to watch your back. Power dynamics often lead to this competition. When there are multiple levels or layers in an organization, you may have a boss, and a boss's boss, and so on. Maybe a coworker has more clout than you do or is making more money. This is all meaningless. In life, real life, none of that matters. You have to be satisfied only with yourself, not worried about what the Joneses are up to. One great way that we get rid of power struggles is by going for walks together. See, if I have a meeting with a colleague in my office, then I'm the one with power, and vice versa if the meeting is in her office. Instead, we walk. The hierarchy is gone. Whenever you can, eliminate situations in which one person is sitting behind a desk. The desk creates distance and a power imbalance that can make the other person feel self-conscious and less than. Meet on neutral ground as equals